Hey, how's it going everyone? We're here with Kakashi. So Hatake Kakashi, the very third, the third release for the Naruto S.H.Figuarts line, and one of the better ones actually. He used some very more, I guess what people call 2.0 joint designs, which is really cool to see, and he has some really cool accessories, which we do have showcased on the back here. We've got the Chidori, he's got his book, the kunai, and a nice selection of hands and faces as well. He was a web exclusive in Japan, so again the web exclusive logo on the box, he isn't too bad, I guess, on the aftermarket pricing. I think it does depend on the country a little bit. I originally wasn't going to pick him. I actually just wanted the Sage Naruto, and when I was hunting for him I saw Kakashi. He was like unopened for like 8,000 yen, which was really cheap, so I just couldn't resist, and the collection kind of grew from that point. And I do believe in the West he was in the low hundreds, so he wasn't too bad all things considered. So he hasn't been announced yet for the new line. He may come next, though they may focus on other characters. So if you really do want Kakashi, it could be worthwhile keeping an eye out for a good deal for this release. Anyway, let's take him out of his box and get a closer look at what he comes with. Okay, so as you can see, nice selection of accessories. We've got the two kunai, the two additional faces. So on his body at the moment we've got the mask down showing his Sharingan, both eyes open, but down here we do have the right eye closed, just showing his Sharingan, and then on the top the Sharingan left eye is covered up, and that's kind of his default look. Coming down we have a hand which will hold his book. I've completely forgotten the name of it. Ichi, the love romance, written by Jirai himself. Then we've got an additional hand, we've got a hand attached to its Chidori effect. We've got another two gripping hands there, I think that's for the kunai. And then we've got the generic, the signal hands. And then we've got the generic Jutsu signal hands, and then kind of open fingers spread ones as well. So absolutely fantastic selection of accessories. Let's just pop him out and get a close look at that finish. Okay, so here he goes in all his glory, and one thing that I absolutely love about this is his overall jacket design. It's really nice, got the nice silver highlights there, it does have a slight indentations. We've got the nice Konoha logo, and then that logo is repeated on his shoulders as well. Then he does have his pouch on the back there, and each kind of individual section of him is, I think, wonderfully done. The plates on his gloves, the belt on, his zipper on his jumper looks really good. Again, we've got the extra silver details, the nice line work on his pants is looking really good too, and that goes down to his ankles. So I think the overall finish of this guy is looking really nice. I believe every skin tone on him is actually painted. So we don't have any real basic, plain, I guess just straight out of the mold plastic parts on this figure, which is really nice to see. His hair is also really nice, and his bandana with the logo too. And his face looks really good too, pretty well sculpted, and we'll go over that when we check out all the faces a little bit later. The feet, again, being the third release, still not quite there, but still better than that first original Naruto figure. Anyway, let's go take a look at the articulation. Okay, so starting with his head, he has a little bit of left and right, not too much there. The faceplate is slightly loose on this one, so depending on the angle it might pop off slightly, so I apologise for that. His neck will kind of move, but it's pretty restricted from his overall design. But he does have some pretty good head tilt back action going on there. He can look up nicely. Going forward isn't too bad, though that will kind of push his faceplate off slightly. But there we go. Moving down to his shoulders, these are pretty nice, and they've got a slight butterfly joint going on, but you kind of have to sort of arms into the right position to kind of get it going forward far enough to really look good. But that will kind of pop out a bit, though it does kind of expose the joint a little bit too much, so it isn't the prettiest of joints. but the range of motion you do get is pretty nice. And you can go up and around pretty easily. Everything does feel quite nice. So I think that range of motion for this guy is actually pretty decent for his upper body so far. So moving down his arm, these parts will swivel independently just below the logo. And then for his elbow, yeah, that's actually really nice. Gets a full range going on, and the joint is pretty well hidden, though you do get quite a big straight flat edge. So it's not the prettiest, but it is a pretty effective joint for getting a decent range of motion and articulation. His hands, all pretty standard, the usual joint on there. So yeah, back and forward, no real issues at all there. Now onto his waist. His upper body will move slightly. Going forward isn't too bad, but going forward isn't too bad, but going back is a little bit restricted, and his jacket will kind of stop his motion a little bit. And then we do have his hips will twist around, and then he does have a little bit of range on top as well. So each part combined will give him a decent range, though the further you twist him, the more out of sync each three parts of his zip gets, and it kind of does start looking a little bit weird. The lower part of his jumper is independent of the rest, and it will move slightly. It does help to cover up the underneath joints, and his accessory pack is fully attached to this as well. Now moving on down to his legs and hips, it's okay. You can't really do the splits well at all. The upper legs will kind of hinder that and stop. But he does have some nice forward and back motion. And then with the knees, yeah, not too bad either. And it's actually pretty nice looking. He does have his kneecap independently attached to that center part, which will go in and cover up any of those joints. So that's quite nice to see. His legs will swivel slightly as well, so depending on the pose you can twist these out and in to give it a more natural look. But his feet, it's got an okay range, nothing too great but nothing too bad either. It's pretty basic, and he does have his usual toe tip point of articulation too. Okay, so now onto the faces, and yeah, the detailing is really nice. We've got the sculpting of his eyebrows individually painted. We've got the nice kind of a grey colour there, and then the sharding gun as well. And that is quite hard to see, but there is the scar lining, and then the actual print in the eye as well. And now onto the second head, we've got the right eye closed with a nice black line, which is good. And again, the sharding gun is lovely painted. I think this one kind of portrays the kind of a stern, not quite angry, but quite concentrated look that Kakashi has. I think it looks really nice. So the other head is actually, so the other face is a separate head, a little bit tight to put on and off, so I won't put on the body this time. But yeah, that is looking pretty nice, with the just single eye showing. And you just take the hair from the other head and attach it on, like so. There we go. Now we've got the full formed base Kakashi head. So moving over to some of the accessories it comes with, there'll be photos at the end of this video with him using these accessories, so yeah, be sure to check those out. But for now, this is a nice, quite a teal colour effect for the Chidori, which looks nice, and it is fully attached to his hand, which will just slot straight on. Now unfortunately, the Kakashi I have, his wrist peg comes out of his joint super easily, so I need to dig out some pliers or something like that to remove it from his hand so I can switch over to the effects. But yeah, please do check out the pictures at the end of this video with the actual effects attached to him, so you can get a better idea of how they look. The other effect I really like is his hand and book, so I think that just slots in there underneath his thumb, and there you go. He's just reading the latest version that he's received from Jirai himself. So that's really cool. So if you've watched the show or read the manga, Kakashi always kind of appears and he's just chilling there reading his book while observing the situation. So that's really cool that he does come with this effect. And then both left and right hands are available for him to hold his two kunai, which is really cool. And unlike the Naruto figure, his hands are pretty well proportioned. He doesn't have those kind of giant circus-sized ones. And speaking of Naruto, here he is for a size comparison. Kakashi is definitely a fair bit taller than Naruto, which is, I think, pretty much spot on. So Naruto's head is going just above Kakashi's shoulder. I think it looks pretty good for sensei and pupil. So yeah, I mean, I think the size looks pretty good. Let me know below what you reckon. If you think one should have been slightly taller or shorter than the other. One thing I do want to point out while Naruto does spin around here is, as I just mentioned earlier, those giant hands that he has in the kunai. Even though Kakashi came out, he was like the second release after Naruto, they definitely did make an improvement with the proportions, which was great to see, and the kunai is a lot nicer on the Kakashi release. So pretty excited to see what they're going to do with a potential 2.0 release for Kakashi. Okay, so pros and cons time. Pros being that, well, the finish looks absolutely amazing. It's beautifully painted. The detailing on his jacket is really spot on. The kunai are really well done as well, as I just mentioned earlier. And then in terms of his joints, his shoulder ones work decently well, even if it is slightly ugly at times. And then his updated hips and legs is definitely an improvement over the other Naruto figures, though definitely a long way to go in terms of catching up to some of the latest Dragon Ball releases, and especially the Jujutsu Kaisen ones. His faceplates look really good. The finish on them, and again the sculpting is pretty much spot on, I reckon. He has an excellent selection of accessories. The Chidori, the book, and all the different hands is fantastic. For the cons, the faceplates are a little bit fiddly, and they do kind of come off easily. Maybe if they had a slightly longer peg, it could have been a better way of attaching them. His feet are okay, not very, I guess, most highly sculpted toes out there, and then the joint on the ankles aren't exactly great either, and his legs, when they kind of do the splits, they do hit the upper part, and that does hinder the articulation quite a bit. Yeah, but besides that, I think that's most of the cons, really. Everything else is more just down to, yeah, it's a pretty old figure now, about 4 years, and technology has moved forward quite a bit since then. So hopefully when we do get a updated version of this figure, it's going to be pretty damn amazing. Quite high hopes there for a 2.0 version. But yeah, awesome figure. If you can get him still, he's still worthwhile picking up, especially compared to some of the other older Naruto figures. And since we don't know when we'll be getting a new version, he's probably worthwhile picking up now if you can get a good deal. Let me know in the comments below which one you want to see next, because there's going to be Jiraiya, Gaara, and Lee, and Sage Naruto, so 4 left to go. And yeah, depending on what ones you guys ask for, I'll do that one there first. And as I mentioned earlier, there are photos of his accessories at the end of this video, so be sure to check those out too. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and until next time, cheers!